have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
Illuminati News.
Free and independent.
Here's a currently popular favorite for both American or South American popular dance lovers. Deep in a Dream, and Helen Forrest is
Cut
the
them
singer.
open and leave them there.
Gandolfo Castle perched
around the UFO has really changed dramatically since December of 2017.
Smoke makes a stairway for you to descend. You come to my arms, may this bliss never end. For we love anew just as we used to do when I'm deep in a dream of you. Then from the ceiling, sweet music comes stealing. We glide through a lover's refrain. You're so appealing that I'm soon revealing my love for you over again. My cigarette burns me, I wake with a start. My hand isn't hurt, but there's pain in my heart. Awake or asleep, every memory I keep deep in a dream of you.
Director Artie Shaw not only plays a wailing torrid clarinet, but also...
Woohoo! Applause, applause, an applause? Yay! Why not? Let's start with an applause. Here we are. An applause for our sponsors. Christy, who are our sponsors today?
Thank you very much for your donations.
And
everybody that bought the book.
The book of the moment, guys. The Vatican Top Secret Aliens Agenda. And today we are discussing the Jesuit astronomers in the age of UFO disclosure. And I can tell you it's an extraordinary episode. So please share and subscribe to our channels. You like this?
I don't know.
Yes,
I'm trying to understand it.
A new studio?
Am I on the right side?
Yes. You would like to go on the other side? You say.
This is right.
Yes.
No, but I'm usually... Okay, whatever.
Okay, if you really wanted the other way, we could go like this. Woo!
Okay, no.
Woo!
No.
Woo!
No! I hate this studio. Oh my God.
Oh!
And there's a sewer smell I don't understand.
What are the puppets?
The puppet.
They've been kidnapped by aliens? Oh, okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be discussing one of the key topics of my new book, and we will be doing it with the guys who are actually the ones we are talking about in the book. Wow. We're going to have a lot. And we're going to also talk about the renegade Jesuit who became an ufologist and then denounced the Vatican's top secret alien agenda. Did you know about that?
No.
Yeah, it's a surprise. It's a surprise for our viewers today. So please share this video, guys. Share. What is
We
this?
sound like nobody sees us ever.
Never.
We're like almost invisible.
Almost invisible. Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like you should be relevant, right?
Well,
More relevant than you
absolutely. I mean, just look at the most important UFO podcast this week and what they're talking about.
You know, everything that was in your book, like
Yeah.
it's pretty much they took the whole table of contents and made a show about it.
The Vatican's 2000-year war on UFO disclosure. Wow. On Jesse Michaels this week.
Do you think the Vatican knows anything about UFOs?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely I do.
So who is this guy? Who is this guy?
Who's that guy?
Who's this guy?
Before my life.
And I think that the role of the Vatican is hinted at by many people that I would respect. It kind of comes up and then it disappears, right? No one wants to focus too much on the Vatican.
Yes, if you want to focus on the Vatican, actually, guys, the book, Top Secret Alien Agenda. This book, subtitle is Hidden Encounters, Forbidden Rituals, and Jesuit Astronomers in the Age of UFO Disclosure. Guys, this is the book you should be reading. Jesse Michaels.
So we'll keep it short. But I think what is it that makes an institution last for a long time? 2,000 years. There's some other institutions, like I think Egyptian empires have lasted longer. But the key thing is you have to resist change. You have to resist revolution. And the Vatican did and has done an outstanding job on that. There was many doctrinal things that came up and they dealt with that. And they were suppressing all sorts of things that would come up for a long time. But eventually you have the Reformation, which in turn leads to the Enlightenment, which in turn leads to, like a new form of government over here in America. These are all revolutions, and demonstrably the Vatican conspiring with the monarchies and the Knights of Malta, who lost Malta because of Napoleon during the Napoleonic Revolution. All of them were like, we nearly got wiped off the map, like late 1700s, nearly completely destroyed all of this old power. So afterwards, they colluded a thing called the Congress of Vienna. It's like 1812 or something.
1815.
1815. You were ready for this.
Oh, so these are the big experts. The big experts of what? What gives them this expertise? Anyway, guys, one is, of course, under the wing of Jacques Vallée. Jesse Michaels is very much under the wing. You say that? Under the wing? Or something?
Yeah.
Yes, I guess so.
I don't know, not really.
Not really. But Jacques Vallée, after his bizarre admission during Contact in the Desert, went back on Jeremy Corbell's and George Knapp's podcast, admitting something which, of course, is another confirmation of what I've written regarding the relationship with the remote viewers and the legacy program. But here he is, Jacques Vallée himself.
You're saying you've been made aware that there is a government project, maybe it was 20 years ago, that was able to establish direct communication with.
Listen, Jeremy Corbell, it was called various ways. In the end, it was called the Stargate Project, and that was the project that established contact with non-human intelligence. Yes, Jeremy Corbell, yes. But it's already here. But these people are coming out with this.
Oh, it's a new revelation.
The non-human intelligence, and that you believe this information to be true, and that this is a reality. This is what you understand to be true. Is that correct?
I cannot tell. Yes.
I cannot tell. Yes. Jacques Vallée.
It's factual. What I cannot tell is whether that the entity that was presented was a simulation of a real entity or whether it was the real entity.
What the heck is he saying?
I don't know. That was kind of like a word salad.
Jacques Vallée, are you giving us a Kamala Harris word salad?
Okay.
What's the face of Jeremy Corbyn? Yes.
People I spoke to couldn't probe it to see if it was made of flesh or in metal or something else. Okay.
Yeah, I know that you have a lady friend of yours who likes Jeremy Corbyn.
Yes, my friend Kathy likes Jeremy Corbyn. And she
I think
says he's a whistleblower and not a gatekeeper. What do you say?
I think he's a gatekeeper.
And why do you think that?
Because he's a little bit, I mean, I live in Palm Springs, so I kind of understand when you have that kind of...
What are you talking about? Are you making gay innuendos?
No, absolutely. But I'm saying that he looks a little bit, he looks...
If he's gay, he can still be a good...
Yes.
You are horrible.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying he used to live in his mother's basement. Okay. Then he tended to be a whistleblower he became a documentarist. And eventually he launched himself. But I really think that the guy is not really being honest about, and regardless of his sexuality, who cares about his sexuality?
Okay, thank you.
It was just, to be funny, but of course...
Okay, it wasn't funny, Mommy.
It wasn't funny?
No.
Why?
I don't like those I don't like that.
Let me do some jokes!
But always do these stupid jokes. I don't think they're funny.
Okay. Regarding another thing that we find as a confirmation of another, because there is so many confirmations that you can, in the last week, we had also Professor Diana Walsh-Pasulka confirming what I wrote in my book regarding the fact that she was blindfolded and brought into a secret UFO crash site. Here we are, Professor Pasulka.
Who were members of the program, and they believed in UFOs. They studied UFOs, and they had material, that they showed me. I went to New Mexico with Dr. Gary Nolan. We went together. I invited him to go with me. Jeff Kripal wouldn't go.
Jeff Kripal. This is a name you have to remember. In a moment, remember his name, Jeff Kripal. He was a guy who went to seminary, wanted to be a Benedictine monk. He is also in the top Vatican secret alien agenda because he wants to get somehow into the Vatican archives, but he never manages. In any case, Diana Pasulka managed, of course. Maybe, you see, I actually, with what she admitted here, that Kripal was invited, it makes sense because then Kripal was not invited in Vatican archives. Instead, she and the ones who accepted that invitation, and the one who made the invitation, who was this Taylor guy, went to the Vatican archives. So if you didn't go to the UFO crash site, you were not then invited to the Vatican archives.
Okay, wait, say that again.
Okay. So I made this, this happened in the last week, what she's been saying here. So she has admitted what I said about her being blindfolded and going with Gary Nolan to the UFO crash site. The name in her book, American Cosmic, wasn't Gary Nolan, but she also covered the name of the other guy who brought it to the crash retrieval site, who was in the book American Cosmic called Taylor. In reality, the name Tyler, is the pseudonym of Dr. Timothy Taylor, who participated in many space shuttle launches and who is obviously part of the legacy program. But she said, I invited also Jeffrey Kripal, and he didn't come. Then, after a couple months, Jeffrey Kripal goes on the media and says, I can't get to the Vatican archives. And instead, Pasulka, she had access to the Vatican archives, and Taylor had access to the Vatican archives too, without even being a religious study expert, because he's a guy from another scientific realm. So it makes sense. You get to the crash retrieval site, and then they make you go to the Vatican archives. Understand?
Yeah, I understand now.
Check out. She confirms.
With me, by the way, I invited him to go. We were blindfolded, by the way, because we went to a crash retrieval space, alleged. I recognize that. Okay, the belief in UFO is a rising belief, and the reason is because now we have science that tells us a lot of things, maybe things that could, tell us religion doesn't have all the answers. But here we have a new form of religion with a new kind of technology, right? So digital technology, and so I started to see the belief in UFOs as a religiosity, a new type of religion. So, it serves the function of explaining, what we're dealing with. And for them, it's a lot more complicated than it appears to be, because the people who do look into UFOs, like Dr. Gary Nolan, or the person that we went with that was part of this program.
Okay, the person we went with, she doesn't even have the courage yet to confirm it was Dr. Timothy Taylor. She has confirmed, of course, that the other gatekeeper scientist was Gary Nolan. Initially, she called Gary Nolan James in Pazooka's American Cosmic. He was called James. So she changed the names around to cover up. I, of course, exposed the names in my book. But it then makes sense, like I said, that Jeffrey Kripal, he opted out of becoming, because the moment in which you accept to go into a crash retrieval site, you become a tool in their hands, because they showed you something that is classified.
They have various beliefs about life because of what they study. And obviously the cosmos, like, what's out there. Well, obviously now, something that may not be extraterrestrial, but is definitely not human.
Okay, so definitely not human, repeat, confirming what I said in my book. And on top of that, instead, going back to Jesse Michaels, then the whole thing centers on Magenta, the Magenta crash, Mussolini. I mean, guys. And then Cardinal McIntyre, who went allegedly with President Eisenhower in 1954, 52 also, when he went there. He was in Palm Springs and then ended up with the aliens. Let's check out another little clip from Jesse Michaels.
And, no one else can really see this lady, and the children keep saying she's appearing, and everyone's thinking, whatever, But
here he's talking about the Blessed Virgin Mary also, which is the last chapter of my book.
That's the BVM.
Yeah.
She appears so many times, the town starts to get a little bit stirred up by it, by their stories. And then eventually she says there's going to be a huge miracle that's going to happen on this date, this place. 70,000 people turn up, and the newspapers document this, and all the history we have shows this. They turn up in a field, and eventually everyone's thinking, like, am I going to stay here? Nothing's happening. So they're getting ready to go. And the clouds part, and there's this thing in the sky. And the sources that we have from lawyers and doctors and, very serious people describe it as a silvery disc. Okay. It's hovering there and it's suddenly doing this and it's going there and it's doing that. It's whizzing around. At one point it comes down. It seems like it's about to hit them and it goes back. And then suddenly the clouds come over and, the sun kind of reappears from behind them. Okay. So the Vatican basically says this was the sun flying around. Okay. People said they saw a disc. But for the Vatican, that's kind of dangerous. You're telling me there's a silver disc in the sky? I'm probably going to stop focusing on all my Hail Marys and start reading some books, So now there's this tendency to constrain the information. You also had this with Cupertino.
Specifically, though, on that, I think the Vatican confiscated one of the prophecies from the...
Yeah.
Well, yes, so we discussed that. The prophecy of Fatima that was given to Sister Lucia, and then of course the Vatican gives their own version of it in the year 2000, the version which is not really accepted by the majority of people who previously had heard about a different version of the same secret. Like I stated in regards to the Blessed Mary apparitions, the Vatican only certificates those which talk good about the Vatican. If you start talking bad about the Vatican is about to finish, it's infiltrated, it's filled with sinners, well, at that point, of course, they're telling the truth. Whomever the Blessed Virgin Mary is, if it's aliens communicating through this archetype, which is known religiously to us, or anything else, when they're stating the truth, the Vatican doesn't want that. That's for sure. Then, like I stated, we have on top of all this the Jesuits, and the Jesuits are the ones who, since the 1930s, are officially and formally in charge of the Vatican Observatory known as the Specula Vaticana. And there was a recent interview given by none other than the new director, Father Di Souza, to the Gatekeepers channel, which is, ladies and gentlemen, News Nation. News Nation is the Gatekeepers channel. I mean, you want to tune in, Ross Coulthard, Chris Cuomo, that other one, Vargas, whatever, Vargas, that's a lady, Vargas, old lady, or whatever, and then all the others. It's like News Nation is the gatekeeper official, you know. So how did Father Souza, the new director of the Specula Vaticana, which I talk about in my new book, become a Jesuit? Well, this is, by his own admission, how he became a Jesuit. And it's very interesting because he explains that he has become a Jesuit because of his mother. It's kind of weird. Let's check out News Nation a second. One nation under God. Okay. Now, moving forward in this interview with the new director of the Specula Vaticana, still we have Gain Consulmagna as the director of the foundation, but we have, of course, Souza as the one who now takes care officially of the observatory. And this is how he became a Jesuit.
In school. And can you tell us a little bit about how you found your vocation, and then how that sort of intertwined with finding your love for astronomy and deciding that you wanted to focus on astronomy?
Yeah. So I did meet the Jesuits when I went to school in Goa, when I went to high school there. But it wasn't the first time that I met the Jesuits. I was actually baptized by a Jesuit. And this points to the fact that my mother had a very long history with the Jesuit order, knowing them when she herself was growing up. And so there was a very strong affinity towards the Jesuit order, let's say right from the very beginning. But I really got to know them on a personal level when I attended this Jesuit school. What fascinated me, of course, was the sense of curiosity, of academics, of adventure, which enthralled me as a young lad, and highly influenced my decision to join the Jesuit order. I did join very young, at a young age of nearly 18 years of age. And as I had a very strong love for the sciences, and at the beginning, I actually was thinking that I would have to give up my love for the sciences by joining the Jesuit order. But as I grew up within the order, it was the order itself which prompted me to get back to the sciences, to continue and pursue my love for the sciences. And in a certain way, they also pointed me in the direction of astronomy. I was interested in the general field of physics, and it was a kind of marriage of certain type of needs. I enjoyed physics, they needed an astronomer, and it was just an ideal match. And when I tried out my first research projects in astronomy, I immediately fell in love, and from there was no turning back.
So a sense of adventure, you said that a sense of adventure and curiosity, a lot of our viewers who may not be religious may not associate a vocation, giving up, becoming a priest with a sense of adventure. Can you explain a little bit sort of how the Jesuits, their approach?
Now, I want to make a preface, a anticipation to what is about to say. In volume 12 of my Confessions, I explain how the Jesuits are adventurers, but they're also spies on behalf of the Vatican. In 1560s, they created what is known as the entity. So keep that in mind when you're listening to what the present director of the Specola Vaticana is claiming.
And how, what you mean by a sense of adventure.
Yeah, so if one looks at the Jesuit history, one sees that as missionaries, they were sent out into the world. And at the same time, they ran schools and universities.
Sure, they're spies. And also they took over the establishment of the educational system. That is another important part of their controlling aspect.
Universities, where they became great professors, did a lot of research, promoted their intellectual scholastic culture, which was prevalent in Europe in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. So they had this strong intellectual tradition. The Jesuits have always been known for their intellectual tradition. But what's perhaps also little known is the fact that they themselves went out in various parts of the world, especially in Asia, Africa, China, up to Japan, South America, even North America, and as missionaries preaching the gospel, trying out things.
In Japan, they got kicked out, by the way, after a little while. And they only came back with the Emperor Meiji. But for a few centuries, they got completely out of the picture because the Japanese understood the dangers.
Were the first Europeans reaching these lands, finding new paths, new routes, mapping out the area, producing the first maps, producing the first dictionaries of the local languages. In a certain sense, also entering into some of these more advanced cultures like the Japanese and the Chinese culture, even in India, bringing with them new scientific results from Europe in order to get access to these codes. So it was a kind of a lovely marriage between being a missionary, being a scientist, being a diplomat, being an explorer. And as I read this history, I thought to myself, if there was one religious order I would like to get into, that would be the Jesuits. It's kind of resonated with me.
Yes, you wanted to be an adventurer, a spy. Well, yeah, James Bond. Who doesn't want to be, a 007 in service of His Holiness the Pope? Oh, well, you have to be a four-bout Jesuit. You know that. Okay, so moving forward with the same interview, at one point, the interviewer from News Nation asks the current director of the Vatican Observatory, how did he get to Castel Gandolfo, which is kind of an interesting question. So let's go and check this answer and of course the question and the answer that I think it's interesting, Christy, that we are doing this work because we are analyzing one of the protagonists of my current book, and I think that is rather important. So let me see here if I can. Technologically, we are a little bit, but
2016, and I was very grateful for this time, both in Heidelberg in the beginning.
Keep in mind Heidelberg, because Heidelberg, the Vatican always dissociates itself from that Lucifer infrared thing, that is on Mount Graham, which is put together by the Heidelberg Consortium, a consortium of... Chris, what are you doing?
You have my hair on you.
Who cares?
And later on in Munich, Germany.
And how did you make your way to the Vatican Observatory?
So immediately after I finished my doctorate, I went for a postdoctorate in the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where I spent 3 years there. And after this short period,
Now, Christy, because they're watching,
Sorry, I'm
they are watching this in the Jesuit headquarters,
But
saying,
you were little.
what is Leo Zagami doing this week? He's talking about us. Then he has his wife, which has a hair sticking out of his pin.
Well, it was the blonde hair and it was coming down. And I just did it. It was just like a reflex. And I forgot we were on the air, so I'm sorry. It was very unprofessional.
What? Okay.
period, I was assigned to the Vatican Observatory, and I was asked to come back to Europe and be stationed here at the observatory's headquarters in Castel Gandolfo, just outside Rome. The Jesuits of the observatory have had regular contacts with me since I started my studies in astronomy in high.
Yes, let's say the real story. It's in my book, and actually, it was Father Coyne who was the guy who told him to go to the Heidelberg University and pushed him towards his career that will end up in Castel Gandolfo. So let's not forget that, because in a moment we're gonna go to Father Coyne, the great mentor of all these Jesuit astronomers.
And later on also in Munich. So there would be a regular contact, regular exchanges. I would often visit them here in Rome. And I kind of knew that after I finished my postdoctorate in Michigan, I would have to join the staff of the Jesuit of the Vatican Observatory, and I would be summoned to Rome, and that's what happened in 2019.
And Pope Leo appointed you director in September of 2025. So tell us how that's been, and then tell us about the Vatican Observatory. Why does the Catholic Church have an observatory?
Yes. So since Pope Leo XIV appointed me as the new director of the observatory, taking over from Brother Guy Consolmagno, who held the position for 10 years. And it's been a very interesting time since I've been appointed. A lot of challenges, learning on the job, learning in public in front of everybody. And so far I've enjoyed the process. I think we have done a rather good job, and been trying to form the team, try to conceptualize a vision for the next 10, 15 years of where we would like the observatory to be as a team. And this process is going on. But let me return back to your question about why the Vatican has an observatory. Well, it really goes back in history. I would begin by saying that the Church always had a great interest in astronomy, in cosmology, in its place within the universe, and for centuries adopted the Greek ideas of astronomy and cosmology. But then in the 16th century, there arose a new problem, and that was precisely the problem of trying to identify the date of Easter. And as the Church was expanding beyond Europe into the new worlds, it became increasingly difficult due to the long, treacherous journeys of these missionaries to communicate the date of Easter as it was done in the old Julian calendar with in an appropriate time period. In general, the date of Easter was calculated about 3 or 4 months before Easter, and it wasn't just enough time for these long 6 to 9 month voyages from Europe down to China, India, or even up to Japan. And so the Church needed a new, more foolproof system of predicting the date of Easter, and also taking into account this lack of sync between the seasons and the months, which happened because of certain defects in the older calendar. And so it formally began studying astronomy to fix the calendar. That was the job entrusted to the Jesuit order right at the immediately after its founding in the 16th century. And from that time onwards, the church has always had observatories and has been studying astronomy. But I would say that around the 19th century, or immediately after the French Revolution, the context changes with increasingly new discovery, but also the strong anti-clericalism prevalent in Europe after the French Revolution. It became increasingly important in the end of the 19th century to demonstrate that faith and science still go together. It is important that both aspects go together. And the First Vatican Council, the council condemned a strong emphasis on faith, which we call as fideism, to the detriment of reason, which a theme which John Paul II later takes it up in his encyclical. But Pope Leo XIII, then in 1891, refounds the Vatican Observatory with this motive: to show the world and the church that faith and science go together. And this now becomes the new objective of the Vatican Observatory, to do scientific research, but not to fix a calendar. But it's really to demonstrate to the world that the church is always interested in the sciences and is for the sciences. And since 1891, the way we do it is not through philosophical discussion that science and religion or faith and science can go together, by doing it by actually doing the scientific research and demonstrating that the church is for science. And since then, the Vatican astronomers have been at it, taking part in various international projects, doing frontier astronomical research, and demonstrating to the world and to the church that faith and science can go together.
Oh, faith and science can go together, but it wasn't always the case. And that is really the opening of the questioning of Father Coyne. A few decades ago, Father Coyne has not been alive now for a while, but Father George Coyne was definitely one of the most influential people to hold the post of director of the Vatican Observatory for 28 years. Usually it's a 10 years tenure. So imagine, he went overboard. But in this interview, he makes some very interesting admissions. I like his old school introduction. Oh, those Jesuits in Castel Gandolfo!
Thank you for joining us on UCSD Guestbook. We're here at the Reuben H. Fleet Science Center, and our special guest is Father George Coyne, who is the director of the Vatican Observatory. Father Coyne, thank you for joining us this evening.
Dennis, it's good to be with you. I look forward to our conversation. It's been a nice evening so far.
Oh, thank you. I talked to a lot of people, and I mentioned the Vatican Observatory, and people are just blown away. Why is the Vatican interested in astronomy?
That's a question that always recurs, and a lot of people think we're there to baptize extraterrestrials or to, all these kinds of fantastic things.
Listen, you are the one who actually talked about baptizing an extraterrestrial first, and I actually have an article to prove that, ladies and gentlemen, because these Jesuits, they like always change things around, they kind of change the narrative depending on the context and everything else. But if somebody wants to actually check out on the real nature of Father Coyne, well, there is an article from May 29, 1994. It's titled, "Would You Baptize an Extraterrestrial?" And it was actually published when another of Cohen's disciples entered the Castel Gandolfo scenario, which was Brother Kai Consul Magno. Would you baptize an extraterrestrial? And so, oh, these things, baptize an extraterrestrial. Yes, baptize an extraterrestrial. You're talking about it.
Observatory exists, as many institutions do, for a simple reason, that in the 16th century, the calendar had to be reformed. Easter was becoming a winter festival. Ramadan, Passover, all the religious festivals that are celebrated as spring festivals were becoming winter festivals. So the Pope at that time, Pope Gregory XIII, asked the Jesuits at the Collegio Romano, the Roman college in downtown Rome, to study the data required to reform the calendar. So a certain tradition started up of doing research.
So October 1999, Father George Coyne. Father George Coyne talks, of course, about why we have Jesuit astronomers in the first place here. He's trying to explain.
Research in this way, and the Vatican Observatory came to be. That tradition was so rich that the Church has always considered continuing this kind of work.
And so the research continues to this day. What sort of research is going on today, and what sort of discoveries are being made by Vatican astronomers?
Well, this is not the most interesting part. Let's go to Galileo Galilei, actually. Why not? Huh?
But the confusion is a good confusion, because...
Stop. Let's focus a little bit on what the Pope, actually, Father Coyne was the guy who really put forward even further the reason in science methodology suggested by John Paul II, because he worked for a long period of time also under John Paul II. He was definitely a post-conciliar figure, because he came after the Second Vatican Council. And like I said, it's interesting to see in this interview later on also his own take on how people will receive the extraterrestrials.
A visible presence in the world of science, because, you know, science dominates our culture. I mean, you can't open Time magazine or the local newspaper without the latest results from Hubble Space Telescope. Is the universe going to expand forever or not? I mean, our culture is very dominated by science, and especially the science of astrophysics and cosmology. So the Church wants to have, it's a small presence, but it wants to have people who are professionally trained, they're astronomers, just like all other astronomers, involved in this world.
What kind of reactions do you get from people? Are they intrigued? Are they confused? What sort of stories can you tell about that?
My colleagues as professional astronomers, because we're very much involved at the University of Arizona.
He was the one who got to build the actual observatory on Mount Graham.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And as many people know, Tucson, Arizona is a center for observational astronomy because of the desert climate, etc. We're very much involved in research there. Our colleagues look upon us with, you know, we're fellow astronomers. They're a bit confused by, you know, our priesthood, because not many are Catholics and not many are religious thinkers at all. The public in general are very confused by this, but the confusion is a good confusion, because I think it makes them think of the fact that this, you know, what we've learned in school about the contrast between science and religion. Here are men who, you know, are respected in their fields of doing research, and yet they're religious priests. So it adds confusion, which is productive, fruitful confusion. It makes them think, rethink some age-old, maybe, prejudices that they have.
Mm-hmm. Well, now your credentials in both science and religion are very, very impressive. How would you say that your pursuits of religion and science are similar? How would you explain how you are trying to explore the universe in those two different avenues?
Well, it's very personal, of course, my response, because it you know, relates to me. The way I view it is the following: that I never came to believe in God, to have religious faith, through any rational, strictly rational process. Certainly not through science. But having the faith, when I do science, all of my scientific results, my passion for trying...
Oh, well, it's good for him. But what about Galileo Galilei?
Look through telescopes with Galileo and confirmed that his observations of the satellites of Jupiter,
So why did you condemn him?
of the phases of Venus, etc., were all correct.
And so why did the church then say this can't be?
Well, it's very easy to say the church did not listen to the scientists, but it's easy to say, but I think it's the truth. The church did not listen. In fact, the Galileo controversy was not a controversy between science and religion, in a sense, because science was never at the table. In neither...
Ooh, here he's trying to change, the view that condemns the church. Of course, they were not admitting what was scientifically correct. And so then after 5 centuries, we're still debating what happened to Galileo Galilei. But, Father Coyne!
1616 congregation of the Holy Office, nor in the 1633 condemnation of Galileo. In neither of those cases was there any scientific evidence presented to the assembled cardinals. None. So science was not at the table, essentially.
So when we were growing up...
Yeah, sure, whatever. Science was not at the table, so let's dismiss it like this. But the interesting take also, Father Coyne, on the question of extraterrestrial life is next. Welcome to the Leo Zagami Show here today, Jesuit Astronomers in the Age of Disclosure. Huh, Christy? This is serious stuff today, huh? Huh?
I got something to ask.
Okay, what do you want to ask her?
How come now, like, everybody has always, like, in the history of humanity, I think people wondered if there's aliens or not and questioned themselves. These things have always been raised. Just when you look at the planets, you wonder. So, like, why now, all of a sudden? I mean, it makes a person think that something is coming. Like, for real.
Absolutely. In fact, Father Coyne was very much preparing for all this. Let's listen to the next question and the next answer.
A lot of people is the whole question of extraterrestrial life. Because it seems that if we should detect the presence of extraterrestrial life, that says something very, very personal about us, our existence. We have been moved from time immemorial farther and farther and farther from the center. How would a discovery like that, in addition to being one of the greatest ever made, how would that affect us as humans?
Oh, it would affect us very seriously. Even the possibility of extraterrestrial life has already changed our way of thinking about ourselves. And religiously speaking, it would be a great challenge because the world's religions, we talk about it, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, etc., are earth-centered religions. The scripture is written by earthlings, I mean, according to Catholic belief, inspired by God, etc. If we find extraterrestrial intelligent life, then there are a lot of questions that come up about the centrality of the faiths that we have. It's a challenge to them, but I think it's a healthy challenge to them to rethink the sort of earth-centered nature of our religious beliefs.
I mean, it certainly happened when we got a chance to look back at our world from outside, and we saw a reevaluation of our world. It changed the paradigm. We started seeing ourselves as citizens of the earth as opposed to Russians and Americans and blacks and whites and so on. And this, you're right, could have a profound effect. What about the whole idea of extraterrestrial intelligence? I mean, finding an amoeba is considerably different than finding a being out there who presumably has whatever we want to call intelligence, who has the ability to think, to reason, to study the universe.
Yeah. The problem is even more complicated by the fact that statistically speaking, if we find extraterrestrial intelligence, it's very likely that it will be much more intelligent than we are. I mean, when we look at the growth in our intellectual productivity within our lifetime, the growth in communications, I mean, television did not exist when I was born. When I was in high school, it was rare to have television. Well, you know, I mean, the growth just in a 50 to 60 year period is immense. Think of civilizations that have been around much longer than ours. So the challenge to us of extraterrestrial intelligence is an enormous one, but I think it's a very fruitful one. It gives us a much better vision of ourselves within the total universe.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to the Leo Zagami Show. Today we're discussing the history of Jesuit astronomers in the age of disclosure, and it definitely started with the mentorship of Father Coyne and his successor then, Father Funes. Now, Father Funes, like I explain in my book, has been involved in a controversy that cost him the last year of his directorship, because usually the tenure, they maintain a 10-year tenure, apart from Coyne, who was there for 28 years. But Father Funes was kicked out 1 year in advance because he was really a bit over the top with the extraterrestrial thing. And also he was collaborating with the Russians. But look at the controversy surrounding the first admissions in this sense by Father Funes a few years ago.
Gandolfo Castle, perched above a glistening green lake near Rome, has a magical aura. It's the Pope's summer residence, and it is here that Vatican astronomers have for decades studied the heavens. Perched on the roof of this 17th century castle are two domes, holding telescopes that Vatican astronomers have been using since the 1930s. Now they have much more powerful telescopes for their research located in Tucson, Arizona. But it is here at Castel Gandolfo that the astronomers have their headquarters.
How do we know Frodo is alive?
One would almost expect to find the wizard Gandalf from Lord of the Rings striding through the long hallways in his dark robes, with his wooden staff and flowing beard. But instead, inside the walls of this castle, an unassuming Jesuit from Argentina leads the Vatican astronomical research and has recently caused an uproar by opening a debate about aliens.
In a universe so big, huge, I would say, as the one where we live, with 100 billion of galaxies, with each galaxy with 100 billion of stars, probably with many of these stars having planets, it could be possible that life could evolve as the way we know on Earth.
Father Funes says he is not sure if other forms of life would be more or less intelligent than humans, but he is convinced that the existence of aliens is not a contradiction with the Catholic faith. There has been no word from top Vatican officials about Funes's comments, but some people on the street find them odd. Richard Charnock was taking a group from the All Hallows Catholic High School on a trip to Italy when he heard about the comments from the Vatican astronomer.
I think it's preposterous that they're saying that. There is one humans that God created. We come back to the Bible. He didn't create Adam, Eve and E.T., did he? It was Adam and Eve. And so, and I just think it goes against what we believe as Christians.
We probably won't be seeing aliens at Mass anytime soon, but the Vatican's chief astronomer does say that there could exist other forms of life outside Earth. And he says if they do exist, they are God's creatures. Tricia Thomas, the Associate.
Now, if you want to know more about this subject and how, in the end, Father Funes got kicked out of his position as director of the Spegua Vaticana, this book, The Vatican Top Secret Alien Agenda, it's a must, and you should all read it if you don't want to stay behind in the understanding of such topics. And now, let's talk in the end about the most controversial Jesuit, a Jesuit who was actually the matter of some controversy in 1968. In 1968, there was the year all the universities were going on the left. Everything was becoming more and more progressive. And Salvatore Freixedo, as they call him in Spanish, wrote a book that got him basically the year after he was expelled by the Jesuit order. The book was called My Iglesia Duerme, My Church Sleeps. But the interesting thing was that after that he started to reveal the Vatican top secret alien agenda. And talking about this was actually Renzo Fernandez Bueno, who is a Spanish journalist who tackled the connection between the Catholic Church and the Vatican, and the Catholic Church, sorry, the Vatican and ufology, in his flagship show Extraterrestres y los están nosotros. Basically, this show was broadcasted in the evening on Spanish TV. But after this episode in particular, the controversy started to grow, and apparently, after another couple of episodes that formed the end of season 4, there was never a season 5. This was an interesting episode, though, because it also touched on the Dominican priest experience. This Dominican priest was called Father Antonio Felices, but it's important, especially his take on the controversial Salvador Freixedo. Freixedo died in 2019, and he was the only Jesuit who was kicked out of the Jesuit order and then spilled the beans on the Vatican top secret alien agenda. I have translated from Spanish for you. This clip is very revelatory, so try to follow it with attention, because it's rather interesting, my friends. I tell you, very interesting.
We are not alone in the universe. That is something that no one disputes anymore, not even the members of the church, who have evolved in their thinking, leaving behind very dark episodes in their own history, such as, for example, the death sentence of astronomer Giordano Bruno, or the confrontation between the church and Galileo. And the fact is that more and more religious people are becoming interested in UFO research, and the possibility that, behind these events, there are intelligences from distant worlds.
And it was a really huge thing. It was the color of the gunmetal bluing. Yes, that was the color, and it had a huge belly underneath it.
It's not going to be theology that was going to give the proof of the existence of...
Here is Father Funes, back from the dead, who made a little intervention on this Spanish show.
Extraterrestrial life, but science, right?
The UFO phenomenon not only represents a real challenge at scientific and astronomical levels, but also at the religious level. And that is why perhaps many of those who investigate these things have a direct link with religion.
For any religion to accept that there may be extraterrestrial life is a real drama. Where is the figure of God? What happens to beliefs when you believe that there is another civilization different from yours, isn't it?
It is common that those priests who are interested in the UFO phenomenon end up asking themselves certain questions, which, if asked in public, can be annoying for their superiors, for the ecclesiastical hierarchy.
I'd like to remind you that Giordano Bruno was burned by the church for admitting that life could exist on other planets, that we were not the only beings in the universe. And yet today, the Holy See even asks whether or not the evangelizing message of Jesus is suitable for beings from other worlds.
Just a year and a half ago, the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope took place, which has allowed us to reach regions of the deep universe.
This is a very interesting announcement, because this telescope really is the James Webb Space Telescope, launched on December 25, 2021, is doing an incredible job, because it's an infrared telescope that circles around the sun rather than around the Earth like the Hubble telescope.
Would God cease to be an earthly entity to become precisely a multiplanetary being? And in what is our closest territory, how would the members of the Catholic Church of Rome react?
And here we get into the controversy with Salvador Freixedo. Get ready, guys. It's getting really interesting. Woohoo! Christy, are you ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Ha ha! The Ozagami Show, the only show off is this kind of thing, guys.
At the forefront of this possibility, in order to have a clear answer if necessary, is the Catholic Apostolic Church of Rome. It is not in vain that they have been observing deep space for decades. First, in Italy. Since 1981, in an astronomical observatory in Tucson, Arizona, since the air quality in the Transalpine country did not allow a good observation. Since then, dozens of priests have gone to the Vatican Observatory in the USA to do science, they claim. And Paul Gable, who is the deputy director of the observatory, adds that we are not looking for extraterrestrials to evangelize. In fact, the Holy See has 10 astrophysicists on site whose real objective is to deepen our knowledge of the universe. And I add that they will have no choice but to define themselves, given the very real possibility that contact with them will finally take place. And I'm not exaggerating, in view of the information that, throughout 2022, has reached us from the United States, assuring us that some of their pilots have encountered in mid-flight with something that is unacceptable from the terrestrial point of view. We have no choice but to think that they are possibly preparing us for something. Who knows, if for the final confirmation that they are already among us. Now we will see where this issue stands today. But first, let us remember that the interest of the priests in the matter of extraterrestrials is not new. There were courageous people who put a lot at stake defending their ideas.
Salvador Freixedo was an absolutely exceptional human being.
Salvatore Freixedo, the Jesuit who rebelled from the Jesuit order to reveal the Vatican top secret alien agenda.
Enormously intelligent, someone with an enormously broad education, a great conversationalist, a person with an enormous sense of humor, and someone absolutely free. Well, for me, he was a character that was out of his time, like many others, but he was not valued, as it always happens, of course. And he was not a visionary. He was a man with a mind so advanced that with the symbology and what he, let's say, was able to grasp at the time from all his research, he knew what was really happening in the world around us.
He was very young when he embraced the doctrine of Jesus. In this case, the Jesuit order. He entered very young, didn't he, in this order?
Yes, it seems that he studied in Salamanca and then he went to Cuba, and there he had problems. As is well known, he was expelled by Batista, Fidel Castro expelled him, I think he was also expelled from Mexico, and finally he went to Puerto Rico and was all over Latin America.
Why is he expelled from the different countries all over Latin America where he is?
Well, precisely because of the social controversy that his writings originated. And it is later when he begins to introduce himself to the UFO phenomenology, when this phenomenology influences his writings even more. And since then I was beating around the bush, but nowadays we know a lot more things, especially about what is behind the phenomenon and about those who add with the phenomenon, etc., etc. For him, the UFO phenomenon encompasses everything. It encompasses religion, it encompasses all kinds of social phenomenology, everything. And really all that phenomenology is what attracted him. But it made him see that there was something, a higher mind that was handling this, and that it was not God.
How did he interpret the UFO phenomenon? I mean, how did he interpret it? Because you know there are priests who have investigated these matters, who have taken it perhaps more to a theological field. Well, they talked about angels. But in the case of Salvador, when he talked about the UFO phenomenon, how did he interpret it?
This huge group of intelligent, non-human beings see us like we see animals. We play with animals. Some of us treat them well. We love them. We spend money to take them to the vet. And others, well, we eat them. I guess there's a bit of everything. They do exactly the same, although this is very hard to say, but that's how it is. He interpreted it in a way, let's put it in quotation marks, negative. That is, those who were behind this phenomenon were not a charity. It was quite the opposite. They were individuals who came from other parts of the universe or were from other dimensional planes. He was sure that they were individuals who absorbed our energy and intended to live based on the suffering of human beings and slavery of human beings, and he focused all that in his research, always on those premises, which were they were literally sucking our energy and enslaving us.
Avenging gods that, for the man of the past, in cultures such as the Egyptian, were convinced that they came from the brightest stars that then illuminated that completely clean of light pollution. It is possible that, to the eyes of the 21st century, this seems more typical of fiction than of the rational reality in which we have been living for more than a century. But the man of the past, who not so long ago did not separate disciplines such as astrology from astronomy or alchemy from chemistry, did believe it was possible, because the vestiges that a much more ancient humanity left on, for example, the mountain shelters of half the world in the form of rock art, indicate, first, that they had an absolutely disconcerting stellar knowledge, and second, that from those stars came gods that were not only represented in those same mountain shelters, but were also different from the rest of the inhabitants of the earth, because sporadically they coexisted with those humans. And when they did, it was not always good for those who worshipped them, because those divinities demanded things unbecoming of their status.
Whoa. Well, guys, today I think we had a very good show. We went through all the various Jesuit astronomers, past, present, and future. I guess that maybe I can show you for a second the guy Consomagno, so then we have the whole, you know.
Oh, that guy?
Yeah, I mean, where is Guy Consomagno? Let me find the Guy Consomagno. Where is he? Yes, maybe it's this one.
Very few religious believe faking their data. They're cherry picking their data.
So he's not happy with ufology anymore. He doesn't like ufology anymore.
Faking their data. They're
Faking. He says that ufologists are faking.
Controlled opposition.
He's what?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. Maybe
but
we
he could be wrong.
really are alone. You know, the odds, at least, of finding life
This is the guy who wrote, published the book, Would You Baptize an Extraterrestrial?
way we think of it, are getting smaller and smaller the more places we look. Though the oceans of Europa, maybe they've got fish or bacteria or something. I hope. I wrote a thesis about that 50 years ago, proposing that. I'd be delighted to find that. If you came to me and said you wanted to study UFOs, I would say, forget it. It's a dead end. Worse than that.
Whoa, it changed a lot from when he used to. I mean, sudden change from the guy who would baptize an extraterrestrial, Guy Consomagno, who was the director of the Speculum until last year. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this show. And if you enjoyed this show, you have to subscribe to my channels. You have to share our content. And if you really want to support us, purchase this book along with all the other books, including Christie's cooking book, which I have downstairs. We need to show it the next year. No, sorry, next week. Then we have the one on Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein seems to be again in the news. There's a lot, as usual.
Well, that's good. He needs to stay in the news.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, he needs to stay.
He totally needs to stay.
Because Trump can't get away with it. Absolutely. Well, at this point, thank you for supporting this show in any way, shape, or form. And we see each other next week. Christy, you have something to say, though.
What do I have to say?
You have to say something. You
I
told me
already said everything.
You have something to say.
I said I had something to say, and I said it.
Ah, you said it?
Yeah, I said I had something to say, and I said it.
Okay, was it the hair on my nose?
No.
My blonde hair coming out of my...
It's just a thing. No worries.
I was just a thing. Okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. He's always kind of pointing. Why is he being... He's always annoying. Okay, guys.
I would like very much that these aliens just...
So you are really hoping for...
This comes and maybe we'll be seeing Jesus then. So
I'm
waiting to see Jesus.
Arriving in a spaceship?
I don't know how he's going to arrive. I think he's already here.
Ooh, revelations. Revelations.
It has been so poisoned by the charlatans.
Well, yeah. Charlatans and Jesuits.
Trying to sell you a bill of goods. You know, the Eric von Danekens and the like. When
Eric
you
von
look
Däniken, poor guy, he just died. And he's talking bad about it.
into what they're writing, you realize they're faking their data, they're cherry picking their data. They desperately want to be the ones to discover. And this goes to the deeper question of why do we do the science?
What do you want?
Are we doing science so that I will be famous for the discovery I made and my textbooks in the future will have my name in them? Is that the kind of immortality I'm looking for? Or am I doing the
Let's
science
say hello to all the Jesuits.
because truth gives me joy, and the odds of finding truth in this particular research project are so appealing to me that I will have that little moment of God looking over my shoulder sort of saying, wow, did you see what I did there? Isn't that cool? Let's look at the next one. And there is a real issue, especially with the scientists you find on TV.